Hi, I'm David with EV World News. We talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. And I'm back today with our founder and chief editor, Bill Moore, and a special guest today, Syed Ali. How's it going, Ali?
Great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh, it's nice to have you. And you're down, you used to live in Omaha, right?
I used to live in Omaha and commute between Omaha and DC, and now I'm in South Texas.
Nice, nice. So are you in Houston or where are you
I,
at?
I'm near Corpus Christi,
Oh, okay.
all the way
Oh,
south, just 15, 20 minutes from the ocean, Gulf of
nice,
Mexico.
nice. Not someplace
Gulf,
like not like
Gulf,
Victoria, Texas, is it?
no,
Okay.
Gulf, just 15 minutes from Gulf of Mexico, but it might be called Gulf of America. Who knows in a few years?
No, that ain't good.
That's really weird.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about what's going on there. I'm still trying to figure out why we want Greenland. I'm kind of mystified. It's like, don't we have enough just barren place in the United States? Well, why would we want Greenland? Yeah, it might be offensive to some of the other territories in the United States if we took on a new
Well,
territory.
we need fresh water. All we have to do is build a pipeline from the glaciers across Canada and into the American Southwest. And hey, we solved our fresh water problem.
Yeah, what a great marketing campaign that whoever discovered Greenland did to get people to follow him over and live there.
Well,
I
that's the
mean,
whole point. That's the whole point. You call it Greenland because they didn't want him to go to Iceland.
yes, because that didn't go
Well,
well. I mean, like I was saying yesterday,
well,
the population of Iceland is less than the
50,
Omaha actual city limits.
well,
Iceland,
Greenland is just 54,000.
Right.
yeah, I saw 56,000, but yeah, just north
Yeah.
of 50,000 people, yeah. And
Yeah.
all of them located in three spots. There's only three cities, and one of those cities is only 460 people, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, it's mostly Inuits, right?
no, actually not. Actually, it's a former Russian oil or coal supply site or something. So mainly they're all former Russians.
Oh, really? I did not know that. I've not delved into it too much, but I do find
You
that
too,
just an
baby. You
interesting,
too.
yeah, an interesting fascination with Greenland. I can understand the fascination with the Panama Canal, but some of the other stuff I'm just not really on track with. All right, let's talk about our favorite topic right now, the LA fire. Oh, go ahead, Ollie.
Before you get into it, Bill, you were talking about water. Just close to where I am is the Tesla lithium processing plant,
Yes,
and the plant needs a lot of water,
a lot of
and
water.
this
Sure.
area doesn't have water.
Yeah,
There's like water emergencies and all kinds of things
yeah,
happening, and I don't
yeah.
know where they're going to find this. They need like a huge, billions of gallons of water,
They
and
can't use salt water.
well, it's too far away from the ocean. That plant is
Yeah.
not that close to the
They were
ocean.
hoping for groundwater, but yeah.
So
Hmm.
they're looking for water right now. I don't know where they're going to find it.
We're not going to bring it from Greenland, I hope.
No.
Well, they are planning. They're planning to build a desalination plant in Corpus Christi. Maybe they'll supply the
Yeah.
water. I don't know.
Oh, okay. So maybe that's the idea. Well, I mean, it's interesting to see all of the ideas. I've seen Musk talking on interviews about how he says desalinization can be done cheaper than what people really think. But I've always been under the impression it was very expensive to
There's
do.
yeah, there's been I just saw a story, and I don't know if I posted it yet or not, but there's a account that I believe MIT has come up with a technology to crack the problem and do it cheaply. So you might, if you're out there looking for information, do a keyword search for MIT. I don't think I put it up on the site yet, but you do Google and you'll find it.
Well, I've always wondered why don't they like create a huge mushroom made of glass on the ocean, and then just have concentrated mirrors to just you know
Right.
steam,
handle
turn the
the
water into steam, and then once it goes up into the
yeah.
mushroom, it just cools down and it falls on the sides, and you collect it.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah. Interesting idea for condensation.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Los Angeles and what's going on with the fires out there.
Yeah.
So obviously this is a really big deal. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people being evacuated. It looks like a lot of Malibu has absolutely been destroyed. I saw something earlier was saying they're estimating the damages in the $57 billion range.
Oh, yeah, I can believe that. Yeah. Most of that area that's along the Pacific Coast Highway, or the PCH, is in those foothills there to the east of it, I guess, has been destroyed. And that's where a lot of people have, with money, have built their homes. Then also there's a lot of damage in the Pacific Palisades area, and now they have officially evacuated JPL. Up in the La Cañada Altadena area. There's the foothills, the JPL campus, of course, NASA, and where all the Mars missions and all that stuff are controlled, is up on those hills, and that all tinder. And so they are so concerned they have evacuated. So I hope the buildings there aren't susceptible to fire damage, but there's a connection here. We were talking about before we went live, that one of the very early investors and purchasers of the Tesla, and my friend there, Saeed, is wearing a Tesla Future hat. One of the very ones was Professor Don Cox and his son, Earl Cox. And Earl Cox works for a company called AeroVironment, who were the guys who originally built the EV1, well, it became the EV1 electric car in 94-ish time frame. And that was originally called the EV Impact, but then they called it, later renamed it the EV1. And that really began to set in motion the whole modern EV technology development, was the technology in that car. So Earl, who happens to work for, I guess, and associated with JPL, if any of you watched the Rose Parade this year, you'll notice that there was a float there honoring the JPL and NASA and the whole Mars exploration thing. And there was a not a quadcopter, there was the Ingenuity rover, or a helicopter, for want of a better term, that was flying and doing maneuvers above the float. Now, of course, it wasn't the real Ingenuity. Has a broken blades, on Mars, 300 million miles away or whatever. But so the guy that helped design and develop that replica, if you will, is a gentleman who was very closely involved in the development of modern electric vehicle technology, and one of the early investors in Tesla. So I thought that was the connection. Of course, where he works has been evacuated because of the fires there.
Nice.
I've ridden in Don's Tesla, the Roadster, as well as his blue Model S.
Right. Yeah. He regularly brings that up to Omaha. He's got several Teslas. He is a professor emeritus at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, which was his alum. And then he went out and spent a lot of time, I think it was with Bell or something like that, doing early electronic development work, and then went on to become a professor at Stanford. And then he moved back here to Omaha, which is, great to have him here because he brought his Teslas with him. So yeah, I've had a chance to ride in his Tesla too. In fact, just after he got his first Model S, he had me down like a week later, and I got to drive it around Lincoln. So pretty cool. But anyway, but there's all these, much of the modern EV movement and the people behind it were people that live in the LA area basin. And I know a couple of my friends have been posting photographs from the roofs of their house. And you can see, the fire, and you can see the smoke from from where they live. So I hope they're okay, and want to let you guys know that we're thinking about you and hope you're well, and hope that your friends and family are well, and we give you all the support we can. So
what's interesting to note is that the fire season has expanded into January.
oh yeah,
It would never happen in January.
yeah.
So all those people who say there's no climate change and no warming of the atmosphere.
Well, yeah, one of the friends out there posted. I mean, she started her Facebook post with "I hate global warming" or something, or something a little bit more even volatile than that. But there's still people. Oh, that's not. I heard a talk show this morning. A guy calling in and saying, "No, that's not global warming. You have fires out there all the time." Yeah, but you don't have them in January. This is the rainy season, in the LA area. So I lived in Arcadia for about a year. So I'm, a little bit familiar with it and loved it out there. I would have stayed if the opportunity presented itself, but it didn't. So moved back.
They're going to have to change construction methods,
Well,
likely
yeah.
from wood frame to cement.
Yeah, well, interestingly, I got on my favorite AI chatbots this morning and asked them about, because if all those roofs were either the old-fashioned tile, or if they were steel or something of that, metal roofs, or even cement replicas and things, would there still be the same problem? And of course, in some of the videos I was watching this morning, where you have a palm tree just exploded, 1 minute it's there and the next minute it's just a ball of flame. So I don't know whether there's anything that could necessarily withstand that. But yeah, wood frame construction, they have building regulations regarding earthquakes. I kept saying volcanoes for some reason, with earthquakes. And then maybe they're going to have to take a look at all those homes that get built in the future are built with wildfire, measures built into them. No more combustible roofs. So,
well, in
a lot of places where there's hurricanes, you're switching to insulated concrete forms.
Yep.
And some of these now are completely fireproof.
Yeah.
So I see that being probably going to be a requirement, because State Farm and Allstate have both moved out of California, aren't insuring homes there anymore.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a big issue.
Yeah, a lot of those homes in Palisades area were lost their home insurance late last year. They didn't have any. So I don't, what are you going to do now if you don't have that to back you up? So,
yeah. Ollie, you were trying to say?
No, I was just going to say that insurance is going to probably dictate that homes be constructed with fire retardant materials or methodologies.
Or they're going to have to change some of the ways they handle forestry out there.
Well,
I know there's issues. I see this all the time discussed on issues of forestry. I know that in certain places, I used to live in Florida and on a military base that was heavily forested, and they had all kinds of fire breaks and different things that were, there was intentional things done where there'd be sections bulldozed so that the fires could always be contained if there was forest fires. And they don't do that in California. Why, I don't know. But I don't really know all the differences between what they do with forestry in California versus other states. But California is going to have to probably change some of the ways it handles managing forests to stop this from happening, at least around LA County, right?
Well, they didn't have any rain in the last 6-7 months. Very little rain, so everything was just too dry and too combustible.
Well, yeah, and they had all those. They had a lot of rain. What was it in sort of midsummer with these oceans of climate driven streams of water, coming down. So they got, what were we talking about late spring, early last summer? We're talking about all the flooding.
Mudslide.
Yeah, mudslides and all the flooding out there. And of course, all that rain, that would stimulate the growth. Then if you have a period of time where there's no rain and all that brush dries out. So yeah, it's a climate driven problem, folks. It is not. And of course, it's population and things, because a lot of those areas back before all those wide areas were settled, they would have fires, but they didn't impact. They might have impacted wildlife and maybe some of the native tribes in the area, but they didn't impact infrastructure to the degree that they're doing right now. So anyway, we're thinking of you guys out there in California. And hey, we've had fires that take place here in our area. These are field fires and things like that. And I think we had one just a few miles which way? This way from me earlier this summer. So those things can happen.
We did?
Saw what happened in Denver. Or out
usually when we get smoke, it either comes from Canada or it comes from Kansas. And the funny thing is, we're like 750 miles from the Canadian border. Okay, so it's not like it's next door, and Kansas is a good ways away too. But we do get smoke. Invariably, there seems to be fires in both of those places.
Yep.
But
well, the Kansas ones generally tend to be wheat fields and things like that they're clearing, whereas the Canadian ones are their forest areas that have caught fire. So yeah.
No,
anyway,
I get it.
Anyway,
all right, so Ollie used to work for Gallup, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about statistics. Okay, so some polling. I've got some polling information. So this comes to us, this article's from Trellis, which formerly was known as GreenBiz. Okay, and I'm not really sure that I really believe these statistics, but they're talking about companies affirming messaging that climate risk is a business risk under the new, under Trump being elected. Now, the concept of climate risk as a business risk is something I hear all the time. Especially when people are looking at investments and different things, especially along the coasts, different things. But there was some polling done. Now, it doesn't really say where they did this polling, but it was saying of different political affiliations, how many people felt that climate risk is a business risk. 88% of Republicans surveyed said yes. 65% of independents, and 97% of Democrats. Now, I'm sure your experience at Gallup is you can't get 80% of people to agree on anything.
Well, first of all, whenever you look at a survey, you have to look at, was that survey representative of the population they're claiming to attribute those numbers to? So if it's not representative, if not done scientifically, then it's not worth a lot of value, because you can have a you can just take a internet poll, a convenient sample, whoever answers, you just report whatever they said.
It doesn't give any information.
Really that is meaningless, really, unless it's done scientifically, unless it's properly projectable to the population. So unless you know the methodology of that study, you can't really comment on it.
No, I know. Bill and I had some theories we won't get into on the air, but it just seemed rather hard to fathom that 97% of Democrats would agree on anything, or that 88% of Republicans would agree on anything. So I just I found that kind of fascinating. But unless we were on something like, do you oppose murder? Kind of like that.
Well, that's the other thing. How did they ask the question?
Right.
If you ask a leading question, you're going to get a leading answer.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. I don't know that I really believe that. I would think that most people would have answered affirmatively. Okay, but I find that kind of fascinating. But the main thing was, should we cut the IRA? Okay, And Bill and I have talked about this extensively. Now, Bill and I have completely different politics. Okay, we're not similar in the slightest. Okay, and
I'm over there. He's over there.
yeah, we are not from similar political backgrounds or anything. But that being said, most of the time, with a reasonable person, you should be in agreement if you pick topics about 60% of things, maybe, but I don't care how aligned you are politically with somebody, you're going to be negatively anywhere from 20 to 30%, even if you basically are in the same political party. Okay. And, depending on what the topic is, you may not feel good about abortion. You may not feel good about gun control. You may have different opinions on school funding and foreign policy. There's all these different topics, within government. But when it comes to the Inflation Reduction Act, okay, and I joke about this all the time, it's kind of like the people who named Greenland. I mean, the Inflation Reduction Act didn't reduce inflation, but it did create over 100,000 green jobs in the United States. Okay, and almost all of those jobs, 90% of them, are in Republican states. And the state that got the most benefit is Georgia, but also the Carolinas, I think Kentucky. There's a whole bunch of them that got some benefit, but Georgia got tens of thousands of jobs. And so Governor Kemp in Georgia, who's a Republican, has got to be in favor of keeping the IRA in place. And you look at, while Tesla can afford for the EV, what do you call them? The rebates, the tax credits to go away. None of the other companies can. They're the only one of the car companies that could really absorb the rebates. They need those $7,500 rebates. And one of the things I was talking about a couple of days ago was Hyundai now is making all of these cars in Georgia, that they moved their manufacturing from Korea to Georgia so they would qualify for those incentives. And Hyundai is employing, what did we figure, was it like 11,000 jobs, something like that? It's a lot of people, that they put in the state of Georgia, gave jobs.
Well, interesting. Texas got a lot of that money too. They put a boatload of solar, wind, and battery all over Texas. And so much so that I saw a report somewhere that there's more renewable energy jobs in Texas now than fossil fuel jobs.
Wow.
So that's incredible, right?
Well, we've looked at how big some of these solar farms in Texas. But what's interesting is these solar farms. So Texas is different from all the other states. Do you want to talk about that, Ali? What is different about Texas when it comes to energy versus all the other states? Like the number, it's not a monopoly, right?
Yeah, they have a deregulated market. They have a utility that runs the grid to provide the power, but then they have individual power producers and individual marketers of that power. So there's I don't know, boatload of companies, huge number of companies, all competing. So for me, I get power from a company that promises 100% solar power.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that's kind of interesting in the growth, I hear these things all the time that the grid can't handle EVs and all this. And it's like, you're not even seeing the big picture. Demonizing EVs is like demonizing your air conditioner. Okay. AI is going to be the real problem for energy. We already know this.
There's a lot of crypto here in Texas. They consume a lot of power.
Yeah, the crypto is kind of interesting because a lot of your crypto miners in Texas are using gas flare-offs. So this is energy that these flare-offs, they're burning this methane or whatever it is to get rid of it. And what's happening is these crypto companies are coming in and they're figuring out a way to harness that and use that in the crypto mining as opposed to just letting it be wasted. And so it's interesting because that energy was just being destroyed and wasted, and a lot of it is done like that. And because of the way they're doing it, they're able to capture it for like 3 cents a kilowatt hour. And it's really insane how cheap they're able to produce some of that power for that crypto mining. And crypto mining is not energy efficient either. I mean, it's terrible in that regard.
Well,
but
it depends on which type of algorithm that they're using, whether they're using a proof of work or a
proof of stake,
things like that.
Yeah. No, I get that, but AI is really going on because the biggest solar farm, I think, in the United States is being built in Texas, and it's 100% going to data centers. It's not going to the general public at all.
And the next generation data centers are going to consume as much power as like small cities.
There's no question.
A lot of power.
Yeah, it's really startling to see how much energy these folks are using, but so much green energy is coming online to power these things. But now it's like the whole thing, like they're reviving 3 Mile Island, and there's other things that are being revived. Nuclear power plants being brought back online. More research and development in the nuclear field to support. And it's not that nuclear is cheap; it's just that it's something they know will work.
It's base load. That's
as well as they want to make a small modular power plants that are not custom built. They're built in a factory, and they just modularize it. Hopefully it'll be cheap, but solar and wind is still way cheaper than nuclear. Far.
Well, there's no question.
That's because the power source is free.
Right.
And
it's not as complex.
You have to build the equipment to use it, but you don't have to keep, building natural gas pipelines or hauling coal across the railroad track from Wyoming,
Hey, Bill, do you want to go ahead and let's talk about the Department of Energy report about the 90% of wind turbines.
Yeah, this was interesting. There's a report that just came out that said that 90% of the materials that are used in a wind turbine are recyclable, and mainly that's, of course, the steel in the towers, presumably the steel in the generators and things like that, which are the bulk of what those machines are. The thing that isn't as recyclable apparently has to do with things like the hub, and I'm not sure why that is. I thought those hubs were metal, but maybe they're also fiberglass or some resin type material. And of course, the big one is the blades, right? And so I did a little research this morning and said, okay, so where are we at in terms of how we deal with those blades? Because what's happening now, there's something like the figure that the AI gave me. I guess I've been burning a lot of that energy, guys, using the AI. But the figure it gave me, there's something like about 44,000 blades that have been removed and are waiting to be either processed or chopped up, or something happened to them. They're still trying to figure out what are we going to do with them. So the main sites for those blades are over here in Iowa, obviously, because of all turbines that you see along the interstate and up and down that wind belt there in northwestern Iowa and Minnesota. And then, of course, out in Wyoming, where there's lots of them there, and then down in Texas.
And California. If you go to Palm Springs, that whole highway from LA to Palm Springs is littered with the damn things.
Yeah, Kansas and Oklahoma has a lot too.
And it has that
too. Yeah.
So this is where the recycling, focus is at the moment. And again, the AI, in this case, it was the Google Studio AI, gave me a list of companies that are working on how to recycle and things like that. So, but the good news is that most of that, and it's kind of like lead acid batteries, it's something like 90% of all lead acid batteries are recyclable. We're trying to shoot for the same thing with EV batteries, but they have additional second life uses that they can be put to before they end up having to go to, Redwood, the company out in out in California that intends to recycle the EV batteries. So that's good news that we're making progress in that area. Although if the incoming administration has its way, no more windmills will be built. And I got to think about, obviously he doesn't know the difference between a turbine and a mill, right? When you think of windmills, you think of Dutch things and Greece, and they had them, I think even in Iran and places like that. They have windmills, and they were mills to grind grain, right?
Mhm.
Make flour and things like that. So they used the wind to turn the stones and things to grind up the wheat. That's a mill. A turbine is something that you spin generally, to generate some form of electricity or propel a jet aircraft or something like that. So they're completely different things with different objectives. One to make grain or make flour, and the other to make power. Ooh, I like that. I just thought of that. So there's a difference, and I think the incoming administration obviously doesn't know the difference. So,
but there are some companies I think in Europe that are trying to reprocess those blades into building materials.
Yep.
And I think Vistas or somebody is working on just some kind of liquid to dissolve them
there's
and
another
then reprocess them.
Yeah, the AI gave me some examples of that. For example, one way, of course, companies take them and just simply chew them up, right? And they take and use it as filler with concrete. That's sort of the low-grade, easy-hanging fruit. The other one is to take and dissolve the thermopolymers, the glues that haul all that together, to dissolve and find a use for that, so that whatever materials, and mainly the core material of these things generally tends to be either foam or the most widely used is balsa wood. And so I don't know how much of that balsa wood could be reused, but there might be a purpose it could be put to. So
they could make some mosquitoes with it.
Well, so we're not going to build any new windmills, but I think I saw just today that the world's largest windmill just started operation in China. Which it's like a football field long, and it produces so much power that it powers, I forget, a huge number of.
It's I don't know, like
just one windmill
or something like that. Yeah.
Right.
So
windmill.
So apparently, in the recycling space, in these things, we've got nickel, cobalt, and zinc. So apparently, we got to get that cobalt so we don't have to have any child labor mining it over in the Congo, right?
Exactly.
We don't have no more child slaves mining our cobalt for our cell phones, right? Or our wind turbines, or our batteries.
Or I always laugh
I always laugh. It's like, there's always some truth to these stories. They're not really myths, okay? But these, the companies do everything they can to make sure that doesn't happen. But I have this running joke about, okay, fine. So you got this 12-year-old kid over here mining cobalt. Let's put him out of work so he can go starve to death. He's probably helping support his mom and little brother and sister and stuff like that, and they can all just die of starvation because you didn't want that kid working.
Yeah.
I get it. We all want a perfect world where that kid's in school and he's well fed and, has two loving parents at home and all that. And sadly, the world isn't perfect by any stretch.
Well, I'm happy to say that was a home I grew up in, so I'm glad.
Same. But I'm just saying, and we didn't mind cobalt.
Yeah.
but anyways, I joke about some of these things.
In my era, you used the phone using a finger, right?
Yeah. Oh, did I? Oh God, yeah. I don't know. I didn't realize I did that. But
I didn't notice it either. It was just
okay.
The phones that I grew up with,
Yeah.
And we had our very first phone number. I don't remember the rest of it, but you always had some kind of a name associated with the first part of that thing, and ours was Keystone. I remember Keystone 745 or whatever it was, right? I mean, that's when this old gray hair grew up. So
Yeah.
But aren't those batteries, all the lithium and cobalt and nickels, is supposedly going to be recycled 95% of it?
oh
So
yeah,
Eventually, whenever they
eventually,
actually recycle the batteries, because
right,
the first thing like out of an EV battery is the battery gets repurposed.
right.
So they get repurposed before they get recycled, and repurposing could give them another 30 years of life.
Right, and most people don't realize that. They think that once the EV is done, their battery is useless.
No,
Most people don't know that.
people all the time think they're going into the junkyard for cars and they're being crushed and polluting the environment. It's like, no,
I know.
that battery is worth more than other cars. When you have a vehicle get totaled out, usually the insurance or somebody will come to the auction and they'll buy that totaled out vehicle for $2,000 to $3,000, and the battery on EVs alone is worth more than that for being repurposed. So yeah, those aren't going in junkyards, that's for sure.
well, so most people's experience with batteries is like this, right? And when you
Mhm.
can't power your remote control anymore, what do you do with that battery? It goes in the trash. And they think, well, there's just a scaled up version of that, right? No. It's completely, I mean, the
They're not even similar.
principle is similar, but a completely different. In fact, there's a story I think I posted yet again, another story. Surprised owner does 250,000 miles in their Tesla, and their battery has only degraded 10%. I mean, and you see these stories constantly where people are, no, I think it was shocked.
Yeah, I think the general rule of thumb is you're supposed to lose 1% every 13,000 miles. And people think it is so funny how many people I see these things about EVs being disposable and all this. Like, they don't think the battery is going to last 40,000 miles. The car is only good for like 3 or 4 years. And I'm like, I don't know where people get this stuff from, because even like Nissan Leafs from 2010 are still worth money.
They're still running around, yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about those old Nissan Leafs, I just saw a report that in Netherlands they're building an arena, which is like solar powered arena and wind and solar, and they're using old Nissan Leaf batteries as their backup power.
Oh, wow.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. I mean, it's so funny because the technology is so different. And I don't know, but one of the things when it comes to EV batteries, you've still got to be using best practices, and we talk a lot about, people talk about batteries in winter, and people say, oh, they lose 40% of their power. Well, not if you precondition the battery, and if you do things right. The Norwegians did a survey, said if it's done properly, you only lose 19% between summer and winter in range. And it's basically about the same as what you lose with diesel, gas, or whatever in the winter in terms of range loss in a gas-powered car. It's not really any different. So
molecules, whether they're in a hydrocarbon or whether they're in a chemistry that goes into the core of a battery. Molecules are the same. They like it temperate.
Well, and now some of the studies though on the new sodium ion batteries that are being made are showing that at negative 40 degrees, which is the same Celsius and Fahrenheit, they're not getting range loss.
Wow.
So so that's a difference in that chemistry. So there's going to be some changes in that space, and it's just people don't know what they don't know. And when we do our show, the people that tune in and watch our show are all people who are interested in EVs. We don't get the EV haters on here, so, or if we do, they don't really tell us much. I get them on the YouTube channel now. I mean, I get plenty on there. It's really funny to see people. My favorite are the people that go on like 10 different videos and tell me what's wrong with each video. Those people I like, because that means they've gone and they watched 10 videos and they've commented and
our algorithm. Thank you.
yes, they probably made Google or YouTube show those videos to another 10 people for each time they came and commented. So it's kind of funny to see that.
So
what about X? How do you get? Yeah, does this go out on X as well?
Oh yeah. Right now we're streaming on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter. Yeah. There's other places, like I could do Instagram and a couple of other places, but it takes a little bit more work, and I'm just not convinced of how many people would watch I don't know. People might watch it on Instagram. Who knows? We tend to get, most of our viewers tend to come from Twitter, but it really depends on the day. Some days we get more from YouTube and LinkedIn. We don't really know how many people tune in, but considering how many people come up to me and tell me they watched the show from LinkedIn in person, I know people are watching it. I don't get statistics, but it'll really vary. Twitter can be a wild deal. It can be anywhere from 0 to 500 people are watching an episode from Twitter, and the days we get 0, I'm like, well, how did nobody tune in? But normally we have quite a few people watching from there, but a lot of it also depends when somebody's watching, how many followers those people have. So the more followers a watcher has, the more likely that somebody's going to see, hey, such and such is watching this show. So occasionally, on some of the episodes, we've had people chime in that have had like 100,000 followers. And so what happens is their people start chiming in to watch the show, and then more and more people see that. So it's interesting the way that Twitter works versus some of the others. But anyways, let's move on from wind turbines, and let me see. We talked a little bit about the statistics. Let's talk about Olinia. So, and we've spoken a little bit about this before. So Mexico's president is Claudia Sheinbaum, and she's previously talked about the Olinia, which is a 100% electric vehicle that's going to use lithium extracted from Mexico. And it's going to be made in Mexico. And the word Olinia means to move. And it's designed to be a small electric car designed and assembled in Mexico. Well, in their release, they say by young Mexicans. They want young Mexicans to make it. So I don't know if that means child labor. They're going to have a bunch of 8 to 12-year-olds out there making cars. No, I doubt that was what they meant. But who knows what they meant by young Mexicans.
The goal here is to inspire and encourage technical innovation. I mean, that's kind of the reason for this. I brought this up because out of the blue, I got a phone call yesterday from a gentleman that I've known for a long, long time who has been deeply involved in electric vehicle conversion projects in Mexico. And he wanted to just give me a heads up. He said, I got a call from the director, that's what he called him, I'm not sure, I don't know. But anyway, from the Polytechnical Institute of Mexico, which is basically the MIT of Mexico, located, it's either the largest or the second largest university in Mexico, who apparently has been charged by the president, Ms. Sheinbaum, to get this project up and rolling and things like that. So he wanted to give me a call and give me a heads up that he had been called based on his literally years of experience. I mean, I think I met him like in 2006 when he was doing a very early EV conversion project there in Mexico City. In fact, he was the one that got me to Mexico City, where I got to ride in my very first VW Beetle EV conversion. driving around the campus there. So I thought, well, you know what? It was kind of a low profile story for me. So I dug into it a little bit more, and I shared the link and thought, well, this would be an interesting topic to talk about. He's concerned about the pricing that has been put on these vehicles. He said he does not sure who came up with the numbers for this particular vehicle, whether they're realistic or not. But the project is at this point alive and well. And
did he reveal what any of those numbers might be?
Oh yeah, it's public. Yeah, it's publicly one vehicle, the little tiny sort of like, it looks to be something along the line of a smart car, relative size. And that's something where I think a little above $7,000, or no, was it $4,000?
Oh, they're expecting 4,400 to 7,400 US.
Yeah. And then there's another one that's kind of more like an enlarged van version. That's the more expensive version. And he was a little concerned about whether that's could be realistically done, given his 20 years of experience in doing projects, akin to this in Mexico City. So he promised he'd keep me posted, and we'll obviously share that with our viewers if and when we learn any more.
Well, we know that BYD could make that happen in China. Okay, because as we see battery prices keep crashing,
right?
We know that the vehicles come down. Can Mexico do that in Mexico, though?
Well,
okay.
Hey, I drive a car, and I bet a lot of the people watching and listening to this also drive cars that are made in Mexico, right?
I get that, but they weren't a $4,000 car to start with.
Exactly. So that's obviously a concern, and can they do? I would love to have them do it. I'm not. Some of them look.
The small one looks like it's maybe going to be the size of like a Smart for 2 car.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and there are some cars in China that are comparable. In fact, actually, there was a car that was made in Tunica. You're from Tunica, Mississippi.
Very much so.
Car that was briefly built there. That was import. It was an import from China that was built here under license in that same class.
I'm assuming that's the building that Mullen Automotive owns now.
Yes, I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah. So Terry McAuliffe was the guy that was behind that, who of course was the governor of Virginia and also the head of the campaign for who did he do? That wasn't Hillary, but it was Bill Clinton. I think he was the campaign director for Bill Clinton's campaign. So yeah, I mean that we've had that particular class of car would be regarded as a low-speed neighborhood electric vehicle, right? You could run it around. That class of vehicle is actually allowable here in Nebraska, although most people are don't want a vehicle with a top speed of 30. Can only operate on streets of 35 miles an hour.
Right.
So what they come up with, it'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah. Oh, there's no question. But they're actually looking at producing it there as opposed to just like assembling it, and bringing over parts from China and stuff like that.
Is that what it is? I hadn't looked that closely. If that's
the goal is, and they're expecting to debut their first vehicles at the 2026 World Cup.
Yeah.
So we'll see where that goes. As long as the project's well funded and they can bring it to bear, I'm assuming the nation of Mexico may be backing this in some way.
Well,
because all the titles say Mexico launches Olinia.
Exactly, and that's why my friend sent me this email. He said, "Call me immediately on WhatsApp." So I called him immediately on WhatsApp, and he was in the process of driving over to what's called IPN over there, the what is International Polytechnique, whatever. He was in the process of driving over there for his meeting. So
Yeah, it'd be interesting to find out how that plays out.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny when you see these nationalized manufacturing businesses. I mean, obviously there's some benefit, and I'm kind of for this. I've heard of this idea of how we save Social Security in the United States is by creating a sovereign wealth fund, and very much like a lot of the foreign countries do, and let that invest in certain projects, and the profits all go back into that and pay out for Social Security. And I think that's something that could definitely be achieved. It's just not been done in the United States. It's done regularly in a lot of countries that have a lot of natural resources. The United States has a lot of natural resources. Okay. And anyways,
talking about Mexico, I'm very hopeful about the president because she's a environmental engineer, so she might understand a little bit of this stuff.
Yeah.
Ali, how about you tell us a little bit your story about Uruguay?
Yeah,
you were telling me.
Oh, Uruguay.
Mhm.
Back in 2008, when oil prices jumped to 150, they were 100% on fossil fuels, and their economy just crashed because they couldn't afford the fuel. So their president had a friend who was a nuclear physicist, and he called him to help them maybe build some nuclear power plants. And so this guy did a extensive study of Uruguay and its resources and what could be done and how do they safeguard their future, their energy security, basically. And so he studied, and then he said, "We don't need nuclear. We can do it all with wind, solar, biomass, and hydro." And in 15 years, they've done it. Now they're 98%, 99%
Wow.
completely renewable, and they're now starting electrification, and in the future they're selling renewables to Argentina and Brazil, and they're starting green hydrogen projects now in the future from excess renewable energy. So and they have complete energy security now. They don't care if the world market prices go up or down, and go crazy. It won't affect them anymore. And the people are, in the beginning they weren't sure, but they're enjoying, all those farmers who didn't like all these windmills going up in the farmland are enjoying the lease payments and tax payments from those windmills and projects. So they, they're very happy about the transition they made in just a decade and a half.
Yeah.
And I don't know why Puerto Rico can't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
So Uruguay, I was going to say, I looked up some statistics. They're saving over $500 million a year at the federal government level just on energy expenditures, and their total annual budget is about 34 billion. So saving $500 million represents damn near, almost 2% of the federal budget. I mean, that's a pretty big deal to be saving that much money.
As well as the currency is going to be more stable if they don't have to import huge amounts of fossil fuels. Then
how are they handling? There are certain industrial and even perhaps residential processes that do require fairly high levels of heat. For either, I don't know if they smelting heat or coal or steel and things like certain things that require that the kind of energy that is produced by the burning of a fossil fuel. How are they handling those particular needs?
I don't know. I don't know if they have huge steel mills. They might not. And they're investing in hydrogen. So in the future, at least if they have them, they can switch them to hydrogen for making steel, like Sweden is doing now.
Okay.
I want to show what these Olinia cars are kind of designed to look like. They almost look like children's toys.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Don't they have a lot of Chinese EVs in Mexico already?
they do.
Yeah. There you go. There's a 4-door, a 2-door, and I think there's a van version as well. Oh, let's go on a cruise while we're at it.
Oh, the Ritz-Carlton yacht collection.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it's not.
Anyway.
You know, they're not bad. You know, and I probably if the one is comparable in size to my Fiat, then I'd be happy. Problem is that, you know, so many of us think there are occasions when we need to have 4 and 7 seats and, you know, big trunks, and that could be. I mean, my lifestyle has evolved. I couldn't have gotten by with one of those cars when I was raising a family, right? But now it's just the wife and I, and we're empty nesters, and we're pretty well homebound, and we go to the grocery store once a week or once every other week. I don't need a big station wagon or a minivan anymore.
Well, Bill, as an economist, you know, I can tell you that you probably are far better off just renting those vans for those few times a year that you need them, and then drive a small car.
Yep.
You don't need those for most people. They
Right.
don't need them. You just
Yep.
rent them. It's far more economical to rent them rather than have them all year long.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've got 2 cars, one of which sits 99 nearly % of the time, but it's still every month I still have to pay that insurance on it, right?
Yep.
So,
All right. Well, that was all the topics I had for today. Ali, I want to
Okay.
thank you for joining us today. It was fun to have you on with us. And folks, I'd like to thank everybody who stayed on and watched the 3 of us ramble on, because as we tend to do. Anyways, I'll be back on Tuesday with Bill, and otherwise, everybody have a great day, and we'll be back next